hello. Welcome to Cozy Costume Creations. Today we're doing a little bit more jewelry creation. So I've got this sped up version of me making a collar necklace that has all of these candies and polymer clay fruits and gummy bears and other teddy bears and some teardrop beads. Just some cute things that inspired me, and so I picked them up and I was like, I'm just gonna throw the whole kitchen sink in here. um, yeah, I don't know. Sometimes you just find materials and you're like, yep, this inspires me. And it's silly and it's just fun, and that's what I want to do today. Because now that I do this professionally, well, I've been doing it for 11 years now that I do this professionally, I don't want to be always stopping myself from gilding the lily. So, these are some of my pieces that are just beautiful and really well designed and thought through. And today I didn't want to do that. Today I wanted to do something where I'm just throwing in the whole kitchen sink. Just having some fun. So that's what I did. So I want to talk about something today as I'm doing this. What I want to talk about is, what is art? And when I was a kid, I was like, obviously art is like stuff you make. Done, period. That's it. It's like stuff that you make and is pretty. And that's like it. And I showed up to one of my theater classes. I think it was like performance studies or something. It might have been history or dramatic literature. I don't know what it was. Anyway, one of my theater classes when I was in college, I was getting my degree. I go in, the teacher's like, all right, guys, what is art? And I was like, this is a stupid question. This is the dumbest question I've ever heard. Art is art. We all know what art is. And, in that, we ended up having a conversation of what's art and what's not art. And I was like, okay, interesting. But I was thinking about that again, actually, recently. And I was like, actually, that is a really good question. I need to talk to my students about that. Of what actually is art? What makes something art? And I think especially in the context of AI, I think it could be a very interesting conversation. I saw a Facebook post that I really liked, and I don't have my citation to show you, but it said, the only thing that's convinced me of the human soul so far is AI. AI art. And I was like, yo, it's so good. It's so true. It's so true. And I don't know, that reminded me of a conversation I had when I was a kid. My sister is an artist. She makes beautiful, beautiful art. She has a comic on Webtoons. It's called Antlers. Go read it. It's so cute. It's beautiful. She's a really amazing artist. Kat Lowry. Go check her out. Go check her out. She's so great. She's so great. And when I was a kid, I remember wanting to learn a little bit how to draw from her because, she's an amazing artist. And I was like, hey, teach me a little bit. And she was teaching me, and I drew something that was trying to be kind of more like what she was drawing. And she looked at it and she's like, this isn't good. I was kind of heartbroken and devastated. I think I was in middle school and I was like, oh no. And she's like, yeah, there's no heart in this. It's not good. There's no heart. And I was like, oh man. And she's like, you drew this little necklace here though. Because, that was always my thing. I was always making clothes and necklaces and whatever and things. And, that's something I've always loved, right? So I'd, put the, detail into this necklace and, made it something that was good. And she's like, there's some heart right here. She's like, the rest of this is bad. And she was right. And I think that's also why AR art is crap, is because there's no heart. There's nothing that artificial intelligence has to say. There's nothing in its soul that is bursting out that needs to be said or written or created or something. Which is, I think AR is crap. But anyway, I watched Arcane season 2 with my siblings, and we stopped because it was so bad. And it was so sad because the first season was absolutely sublime. It was so well written. It was so beautiful. It was so good. But they'd lost all of the charm. They weren't true to the characters. The pacing was terrible, and season 2 was just absolutely awful. We couldn't even finish it. It was that bad. And it was so devastating because before it just like it had heart, it had these things. And I think we see that also with like a lot of content creators that are just like putting things out because like they need content and not because like they have something to say, they have something in their heart, they have like something in their soul they gotta say, you know? Um, so there's that. On the other hand, there's also like I think there's just I think heart makes good art. I really do. I really believe that. I believe what my sister said to this day. I'm like, you know what? You are so right. Like, heart is what makes good art. So when I was younger, I also thought that things had to be beautiful for them to be art. But then, I go and I work on these like witch costumes that are supposed to be, distressed and kind of ugly and, kind of creepy and these things. And that is art and that helps tell the story and it enriches it, right? It's those things like ugly stuff is beautiful and artistic also sometimes. And you're like, wow, 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 And that's so cool. So sometimes that ugly stuff really is beautiful. So art isn't just something that's pretty. Also, as a technology professor, I'm always stressing craftsmanship because to achieve the look that you want to achieve, you should have good craftsmanship. Because if you have threads hanging off of things and it just like, when it's a hot mess, it's a hot mess and it doesn't tell the story and doesn't look good and it's not the best that it could be, right? At the same time, though, good craftsmanship doesn't equate to good art. You can have something that's really beautifully crafted, really well executed, and like not good. And you can also have something that is like unpolished and raw and beautiful. Good art. I don't know, sometimes like my nieces, my nephews, they're drawing up some scribble and stuff, and it turns out to be this amazing, hilarious thing, and you're like, oh my goodness, this is absolutely sublime. My nephew drew like a picture of me with my long hair and like super big muscles. And he's like, it's Sarah Barra. I was like, yes, that is me. That is art. um, so, at the same time, just like some silly little scribble, also art, And then there's just art for art's sake. Making art just because you're human, because you can, because like there's something in your soul and you wanted to create, right? Just because you have the power to create something and you can. Like, I don't know, art for art's sake, that's a thing. And like, okay, from the professor perspective, there are so many different philosophies of like what art is and what makes good art. And we can think about it with like playwriting. So I'm a huge fan of Victor Hugo. He is your boy. I just love him so much. He is so good. Oh, I also, oh my goodness, Shakespeare is so good. I watched Romeo and Juliet the other day. Oh, every word he says is just wow, 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 wow. Anyway, it's fine. Oh, they're so great. Okay, but Hugo was a romantic. And so part of Romanticism, they believed in the grotesque and the sublime, which is such a cool concept. That is like, you have to depict the grotesque, the horrible, the terrible things. And you have to do that alongside the sublime things. And that's what gives these sublime, these beautiful, these fantastic, these amazing things. That's what gives them weight. Like, you have to have this opposition to make the like one thing have value over the other. So he's really good at portraying that. That's why we have like Eponine and Cosette, and we have like, oh, here's this dark gritty world, but then there's also this beautiful upper side, and then there's these people like the Thénardiers who are just like evil and like just money hunting and like blah, blah, blah. And then you have people like Marius who's just like, I've left my father because he doesn't think the same way that I do, and I just want to be a scholar and live with the revolutionaries, like, it's kind of awesome. So, like, they've got their own theories. And people have felt so strongly about the theories of, like, what makes good art. There have been literal riots about this. So, this is, a little bit of history about plays and things. Hernani was a play that Victor Hugo wrote, and there were riots outside this play, right? Ooh, on opening night, there's like a massive riot because the people who were neoclassicists, so they were just classicists, but they conformed to the ideals of neoclassicism. And they were like, absolutely not what you're doing, how you're changing the story. This is not okay. This is not how we write stories. This is not how we tell stories. This is not good art. We're rioting. And they had riots in the streets. So there was like the romantics versus the classicists. And they were like, nah, dude, we ain't doing it this way. Like, like, you take that play down. which I think is so funny and so amazing and so French, because obviously this isn't France. Anyway, um, so yeah, the neoclassicists, they had really strict rules. They were like, we're gonna put on stage like a moral lesson, like this is how things ought to be. And they believe in the unity of time, place, and action. So they basically said the play has to take place like basically in real time. That's the amount of time that's happening on stage. They'd stretch it a little bit, like maybe this is a 24-hour period, but like not much less, right? So you're watching a 2-hour play, then like all the action, it happens within about a 2-hour span. Again, maybe 24 hours, right? They had unity of action of like there is like one plot line, we're not going to get too messy. This is we got one main thing going on. There's not too many subplots and this and that and that. Like we got one thing. Unity of place, we are only going to be in one place, and it's going to be in place that like they could get to within the amount of time allotted. So we're not going to be here in Ohio and then also at the Palace of Versailles. Like, not happening. We are in the parlor room, and that is it. Maybe someone's gonna go out into like the stables, and that's it, right? So they were like, no, we had these. And then they had the rules of like verisimilitude and decorum of like these people are gonna act the way that people in their stations would act. And like we're telling the truth, like this is how it should be, right? And Hugo's like, nah. Hugo said, no. And so he made his play, and he's like, nah, I'm going to break all these rules. And they were perturbed. They were so mad. They threw a riot. Anyway, so point being, this question of what is art is actually, like, super valid and has had, like, so many people up in arms. And I think right now, again, because of AI, I think we're thinking about this again. I'm like, oh yeah, what is art? Is that art? What makes it art? And, I don't know. I think there's a lot of valid ways to structure a story. I think that the neoclassicists, I'm pretty sure Moliere was a neoclassicist, and he is kind of hilarious. And there's, Tartuffe is like a really good neoclassicist play. And so, I don't know, there's some good stuff. There's a lot of humor in neoclassicism. There's a lot of good stuff there. So I'm like, I do like neoclassicism. I relate most to the romantics because, again, Hugo, he's so good. And then at the same time, a totally different, Shakespeare writing an iambic pentameter and writing his beautiful, beautiful poetry. Oh, he's so good and telling his stories, And then I love me my K-dramas, and they use none of those structures, right? They have their own tropes and their own characters, and like, oh no, she's the poor girl, and he's the super rich guy who's a total jerk, and we ship them so hard. So, like, I don't know. I think there are lots of ways to tell a story and lots of these things, but I do think ultimately, with all these things, all these different ways we could tell a story, we can have the hero's journey, we can have the well-made play structure, we can do all these things. But I think at the end of the day, it's just about, like, what's in your heart, what's in your soul, what do you want to make? And for me, as, like, a customer, I just make this stuff. It just happens. I just sit down and I'm like, oh no, I made a necklace! Here it is! It just came out of me. And then sometimes I put a lot more thought and effort into it, and it's like, I have to overly design this and think about, like, what does each of these little things represent? So, there's both sides. So sometimes where I'm like, this is really important, has to tell a specific story and have to be really thoughtful. And there are times where I'm like, here's this collar necklace I made. Here you go. So yeah, you tell me, what is art? What does it mean to you? For me, I think it is. It's like my sister said. It's like the stuff that has heart. All right, we'll see you later. Thanks for joining me.